Our next speaker is going to be Laura Tam, who is the Sustainable Development Policy Director at SPUR, a Bay Area think tank and one of the leading urban policy groups in the United States. She is a thought leader on many aspects of urban sustainability and climate resilience, and has led SPUR's work on water, energy, and climate change since 2007. She has authored or co-authored numerous reports and policy studies, including Fossil-Free Bay Area, Future-Proof Water, Climate Change Hits Home, and the book Resilient Coastal City Regions. Laura currently serves on the board of Friends of the Urban Forest and was appointed by the mayors of San Francisco and Oakland to serve on those cities' respective Resilient City Steering Committees. She has also served on the board of the Green Infrastructure Foundation, the Advisory Council of the Bay Area Quality Management District, the Advisory Committee of the Business Council on Climate Change, and the Citizens Advisory Committee of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. Prior to working at SPUR, Laura worked for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the Office of the Inspector General, where she designed and conducted environmental program evaluations of national significance. She has a master's degree in environmental management from the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Science Studies, and a BA in geography from Dartmouth College. Please welcome Laura Tam.
Yeah, I have a presentation. How's everyone doing this morning while I'm doing my presentation?
You may be even quicker to meet with you.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for that. Sorry. Thank you for that very kind introduction, and thank you for your remarks. I really appreciated the question this morning that Dr. Swim posed about what time is it, and I think that we're in a very tenuous moment here, thinking about time and speaking. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I'll come back to interrupting myself in just a second. Yeah, can't scroll here. It's called Ready or Not, where is it?
I think it was a top.
Okay, can't scroll, sorry. There you go. Yeah, just grab it. Thank you. Sorry for the technology. It always seems to be in my way. But I really appreciated that you asked the question, like what you asked the question for us to think about, what time is it? And reflecting on that question, yesterday we had the person who is in charge of the EPA where I used to work say that carbon dioxide was not a contributor to climate change. At the same time, one of the most important positions in EPA, the person in charge of environmental justice, left the agency, and it's not a position that is likely to be refilled. So that's we're in a very precarious time. I think that's one of the concerns that I have that I bring to my presentation today. And I'm hoping that I normally work in the realm of working with local governments and with people who are working on policy. That's great, just do the full screen. People who are working on policy. I really appreciate getting to think about it in a different way today with you, thinking about spirituality and perfect. Thank you. I apologize again for my technology. I was once told you're never supposed to apologize for the technology. It's not your fault, but I feel like it because I want to take ownership of that. Anyway. So I normally work with people in local government and in regional agencies, the air quality management district, that kind of thing, talking about the future of cities and what can we do in the policy world, but that excludes a whole way of knowing and a whole way of understanding the world that's really important and that many people have already talked about today. So I'm really honored to be here in this space where we think about everyone here is working on and thinking about some of the challenges that I face in my work, but thinking about it from a different perspective. And I think, as Susie mentioned, bringing people together. We need all people and all ways of knowing to addressing some of the challenges that we face. So thanks for being here today. So does anyone, I'm going to start with the picture. Does anyone know where and when this picture was taken?
Katrina.
Right. This was in San Jose 2 weeks ago. This is not you know, nobody was expecting flooding in this neighborhood of the Bay Area. Not especially after 5 years of the worst drought we've ever had here in California. And what I'm going to talk of today is what we can expect from climate change in terms of some of the impacts we might face in the Bay Area. What are some of the things we can do to bolster our resilience as cities, but keeping in mind that resilience is also personal and something we all have to work with. And then also try to show you how, as you can see here, climate change is already here. And it is layered upon the disproportionate level of resources our communities already have. It's going to be worse for some people in places than others. And I think those of us, one of the things we're here today to discuss is what can be done about that. How do we help end the inequity of it while helping all people to cope? So this is, I don't think I have to spend too much time talking about the existence of climate change. I just really like this visualization. It shows that global temperatures are rising. I think there's probably, hopefully, no one in this room who disputes that. This is a nice thing about being in the Bay Area. For those of you who are not here, we are in a fortunate place where we are not disputing that climate change exists. But we are talking about what to do about it. Anyway, as you can see in 2016, things really, it starts to go haywire. The system is not working the way that we inherited it. So with that, there are a whole host of consequences. I'm going to focus a little bit of the consequences bit here on the Bay Area because that's what I know best, but it will be even worse in places less able to cope than our region is. For example, I once hosted a delegation of visitors from Bangladesh, which is a country of 150 million people that is the size of Iowa, and 50% of it is going to be permanently inundated by flooding by the middle of the century. So they have enormous challenges. As we know from the temperature spiral rising, there will be more extreme heat with a temperature rise of 4 to 10 degrees here in California. We may expect to see an 8-fold increase in high heat days here. By 2050, heat-related deaths are expected to double in over 20 U.S. cities, and of course air pollution will be worse and there will be more wildfires like this one here in Brisbane, California in 2008. I'm trying to keep the number of graphs to a minimum, so the first part of the presentation is a little bit more graphy, the second half is more photography, so I think you'll hopefully enjoy that. But so this just illustrates the fact that urban areas here and everywhere may be especially vulnerable to the phenomenon known as urban heat island, which is something where urbanized areas become significantly hotter and stay hotter than nearby suburban or more green areas because of the prevalence of heat-retaining materials like asphalt and concrete. These areas may be 5 to 8 degrees warmer on top of the 5 to 8 degrees warmer of temperature than surrounding areas, and it also increases demand for energy and definitely impacts health a lot because heat waves are more dangerous for people when the body can't cool off. This is something we're working on in the organization. I'm on the board of Friends of the Urban Forest. We bring neighbors together to plant trees in sidewalk gardens in San Francisco, and one of the things that people in San Francisco are not always conscious of is that this is going to happen here. We always think we have this nice natural air conditioning system of the fog, but even that coastal fog has diminished on average about an average of 3 hours a day since the beginning of since the middle of last century. So we're losing our natural air conditioning and we're more vulnerable that way. I think we all know this is just a chart showing the Sierra snowpack, which serves two-thirds of Californians with their water supply. I think we've all become quite conscious of, over the last 5 years of terrible drought, how broken our water infrastructure system is, and how with higher temperatures and of course the lack of rainfall or snowfall, we may have a lot less of that water remaining, and we might have a lot more Californians who want to drink water, so that's a really big challenge for us. And of course we will have more storms, more heavy rain, more flooding, and more erosion on the coastline. We're already seeing this in quite a few places. This is sea level over the last century. We have one of the oldest tidal gauges in the country here at the Golden Gate. And this sea level has risen about 7 inches over the last century. And that piece of the chart is represented on the left side over here, and that's where it's expected to go, depending on how well we seize the moment to stop global warming and keep fossil fuels in the ground. We may have a pretty bad sea level rise in the future, or extremely bad sea level rise in the future. I argue for the former. This is just the Bay Area superimposed with some expected sea level rise. It's a lot of places and a lot of communities that are vulnerable, some more than others. By mid-century, today's big flood will be the average high tide. And we will expect flooding. This map only shows flooding in the bay, but of course we can expect it on the coast. We did a project looking at sea levels and infrastructure in the lowest lying part of San Francisco's eastern waterfront. Some of you may recognize this as south of Market, kind of right near where we are actually, and also Mission Bay, without future flood protection during a big storm and sea level rise by the end of the century. A lot of people live and work in this part of the world. So we have to do something. But let's not just talk about the future. As I said in the beginning, and as Susie said too, some places are already more vulnerable to climate change because they are already suffering from things like bad air or flood risk. Kia talked about the coal efforts in Oakland and the challenge of air quality in Oakland today. There are many parts of the Bay Area, this rich and wealthy place, that have relatively high levels of long-term exposure to air toxics and bad air quality, fine particulate matter, things that cause cancer and things that cause asthma hospitalizations, such as this chart on the left just shows that in Alameda County, which is, for those of you who aren't from the Bay Area where Oakland is the asthma hospitalization rate for children ages 0 to 4 is more than twice the state average, and the third highest in California. So we have problems, we have challenges that we have to face right now. We've already created a disproportionate system that climate change is just going to exacerbate and make worse. And San Francisco is that's also the case here in San Francisco, where we've buried most of our creeks in the sewer system, but they still flood. We're going to have coastal flooding. Some neighborhood, this is from a report that our public health department, we have a forward-looking local government here in San Francisco, we're very fortunate. The local public health department just put together this analysis of vulnerability of San Francisco. It just came out yesterday, and so I stole this picture from them. They found it's especially useful because one of the ways you manage and try to figure out where are the inequities that we have already upon which climate change comes in as an additional threat. One of the ways you solve that challenge is by knowing where they are and who experiences them. And these series of maps that they've done, I've just shown the one that relates to health impacts of flooding, shows that. We know where we can work on flooding and flood resilience. So this is, I wrote this last night and I didn't know we were going to have a set up question of like, what time is it? But this is a slide I wanted to include. What do we do? What do we do now? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that what I do in my work and others that I work with, some of whom are here today. Some of the big ideas around strategies of things we can do together, and I'd love to have a dialogue with more of you and on the panel around how we actualize these ideas on the ground, although we do try to do that. So one of the most important things we talked about in our report, Fossil-Free Bay Area, as well as all the time in general, is keep fossil fuels in the ground, stop causing climate change. That's one of the most important things. Just a very brief orientation to this chart. The orange bar shows all of the carbon that was added to the atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution. The blue bar is the amount of how much we still have in the ground, expected and known fossil fuel reserves. The red bar is the amount that we can release of the blue bar and still keep climate change within a safe limit, which the scientific consensus is around 2 degrees Celsius. Of course, it'd be better if we could do even better than that. It's like the guardrail of safe climate change is 2 degrees. And at the current rate of emissions production, we'll exceed that in less than 20 years. So if we ask what time is it and what should we do now, this is one of our most important projects. I want to move kind of quickly. I think I've been talking for almost too long, but this strategy for the Bay Area, consume less fossil fuel, make everything more efficient, make everything run on electricity, and then make all the electricity renewable is one of the pathways. It's not going to solve all of our problems, but if we all did that, we would do a lot for keeping fossil fuels in the ground. So if you want to read more, we have a 65-page report that we wrote about what the Bay Area can do. It includes 36 different policy strategies, which includes things like this. We can have more fossil-free transportation if we improve walkability, if we improve safe biking for families, for people of all ages and abilities, if we build a great transit network by investing in places to have walkable connections to transit ridership, transit stations. And of course, if we're going to continue to have cars, which I think we probably unfortunately will for a while, they need to be electric. We can't run around on fossil fuels. It's completely unsustainable. And it's especially important for those areas that are already experiencing bad air quality and pollution, because that's what they're breathing. They're breathing emissions from cars. That's our biggest air quality problem in the Bay Area. So we have to, we can address climate change and get a cleaner environment right here, all at the same time. So we've done a lot of work on water supply as well, thinking about snowpack going away. It may not seem so related to climate change, but it's quite related to this concept of resiliency and having a resilient place. In that we've had a very severe drought, and there are things that we can do to increase the availability of water to everyone. As we add people to California, where 8 million people are moving to California, it's projected by 2040. We're not getting any more water supply out of the Sierra. We might be getting less. We could be doing a lot more within buildings, within cities, within districts to recycle and reuse water and use the water that we have, treat it like more of a precious resource, and be more efficient and conserve its use. We need to address the flooding that will affect more and more of the Bay Area without taking action. Here we actually have a picture of what's known as being experienced in Miami right now, sunny day flooding. The idea that sea levels have already crossed over the barriers. That's what time it is. Sea level rise is coming over the edges, and it's taking places like this is the Embarcadero. If you haven't been there, it's San Francisco's lovely eastern waterfront. On king tides, which are the highest tides of the year, we see water coming over that wall today. So we don't have a lot of time. We have to make our waterfronts more resilient. And also, why not retrofit our cities to be greener and more celebratory places? Green infrastructure, trees and plants are good for cooling the air, for cleaning the air, for cleaning water, for reducing heat island, good for the environment, good for other species, good for kids and for safer streets. There's almost nothing there's no downside, so why not do it? And why not celebrate it? This is from an organization called Intersection Repair in Portland that does art projects that bring neighbors together to make streets more active for people and more vibrant for the natural environment too. So we can be doing more things like this. So with that, I look forward to continuing this dialogue today about how we can solve some of our climate change problems, address underlying inequities, make our community stronger, and give people hope for the future. Thank you.